I'm going to start off this lesson by doing a couple practice problems on rewriting equations for y. You'll see the direction solve for y in terms of x, which again just means let's isolate the variable y. We'll do that once again with an inverse operation. Sometimes one is all we need. We will get add 2x to both sides. Y is equal to, remember the x term becomes before the constant, and we're done. Sometimes there are two steps. I'm going to subtract 6x on both sides. Reminder that we're inverse operation to remove the x term first. That leaves me with a y term, and always the x term comes before the constant. We now see that y is still not fully isolated. We'll divide all terms by 3. That isolates y on the left. Negative 6x divided by 3 will give me a negative 2x. And 15 divided by 3 will give me 5. One last one, we'll subtract 8x on both sides. Remember, I can't do anything with the 8x and the 6 because they're not like terms. When they cancel on the left, I am left with a negative 2y is equal to negative 6x plus 6. This time I have to divide by a negative. Remember that when you divide by a negative, it changes your sign. So divide by negative 2, I'll get 4x. Divide by negative 2, I'll get minus 3. So that's just a little bit of extra practice on rewriting equations in two variables. And the next part of the same lesson is to talk about formulas. Well, formulas are just equations that state a relationship between different quantities. And I've listed here some of our common formulas. We have distance formula, distance equals rate times time. Simple interest, which is what you either pay or you earn when you're investing or borrowing money. Principal equals rate times time. Then I have a few, not all, but a few of the area problems, formulas that you'll see and we've already encountered in geometry class. And I threw in a couple perimeters as well as a volume. So here's a list that you should know these, but if you'd like, copy them in your notes. They're good to have as a reference. Now, before we actually rewrite them, I'm just going to give you a couple of scenarios. In this first one, this is a typical distance problem. You're traveling at 55 miles per hour for 2 hours. How far have you traveled? I'm looking for distance. Well, distance equals rate times time, so if I'm solving for d, distance, my rate is 55 miles per hour, my time is 2, and I just multiply. I'm going to travel for 110 miles. Now, what if I'm not looking for distance? In my second problem, you're leaving for a trip and your destination is 520 miles from home. You'll travel at a constant speed of 65 miles per hour. How long will it take you to get to your destination? Well, distance, this is my d. This is my rate. I'm looking for how long, which is time. So if I go back to distance equals rate times time, in this one I'm solving for d. To solve for time, I'm just simply going to take the distance and divide by the rate. We'll do that on the next slide. But for this particular problem, you would think about putting in what you know. We know our distance. We know our rate. What we don't know is our time. So again, as I mentioned here, to get the time, I'm going to divide both sides by r. So I'll divide by the rate on both sides. And that's going to tell me how long it's going to take me to get to my destination. Again, I'm going to take my 520, which is my distance, divide by the rate, and it's going to take me 8 hours to get there. So we do have ways to manipulate or work with the formula. If they're going to ask us, just as they did with rewriting the equations, they're going to ask us to rewrite the formulas. So let's take a look at a couple. Let's look at simple interest. Interest equals principal times rate times time. If I wanted to solve for r, that means I want to get r by itself. Well, PRT is all connected by multiplication. Inverse operation is division. I'll divide both sides by the principal and the time. That will cancel out, and I'm left with the rate is equal to the interest divided by the principal over time. These take a little bit of practice. Back to that distance formula. This time I want to solve for t. If I want to solve for t, I'm going to divide both sides by r, which I kind of hinted at in the last slide. If I'm going to solve for t in terms of d and r, that might be the statement that you see. Solve for t in terms of d and r. So I'm going to divide both sides by the rate. By dividing by rate, that cancels it out, and I'm left with t. And that's the time. Time is equal to the distance divided by the rate. And let's just look at one more for today. Here is the area of a triangle. Area is equal to base times height divided by 2, or 1/2 base times height. This one has an additional step. Okay, it's not just a division. I'm going to take this area is equal to base times height divided by 2. First thing I'm going to do is multiply both sides by 2. That's going to give me 2 times the area is equal to base times height. Now, if my goal is to get h by itself, I need to divide both sides by b. b will cancel out on the right, so I'm left with h. The height is going to be equal to 2 times the area divided by the base. And again, we'll do more practice as we meet up for class. See you then.